When you think about social change, when you think about community, what do you envision? Do you envision one group of individuals from an affluent community serving and assisting individuals from an underserved community? Maybe you picture social change to be serving individuals within your own respective communities. This, of course, is normal. But what if I told you that social change also takes place in unexpected places? See, I've always been fascinated by the criminal justice system. I'm a believer in public safety. But I also understand that roughly 90 to 95% of all incarcerated individuals will one day return back to their communities. I'm also a believer in second chances and that a person's past should not determine their future. This is also personal to me because I've had several family members who have been impacted by the criminal justice system. And upon their return to society, I personally witnessed the barriers that they faced. See, having a criminal record is like a scarlet letter that can follow you for the rest of your life. It can stop you and prevent you from obtaining important resources like education, employment, and housing. And so seeing and experiencing these barriers firsthand spurred me to go into the field of reentry where I work with individuals coming out of prison. This led to me discovering the Inside Out Education Exchange Program, which originated in 1997 at Temple University and eventually made its way to Ohio State in 2009 by Dr. Angela Bryant and is known today as the Ohio Prison Education Exchange Project. And what makes this class unique, and in my class it's a corrections class that we teach inside a prison, is that we are not there to ask our inside colleagues why they're there, the nature of their crimes, or if they will ever leave prison. We are there to learn collectively about the correction system. As you can imagine, these type of classes are very unique, and in particular, the first day is always interesting. Picture this. Instead of walking across campus for your first class, you are getting in your vehicle and you are driving out of the city for miles and miles until there's nothing but farmland all around you. You eventually get off the interstate and you go down a service road, and all of a sudden you come up to this building that's distinguishable by the large amount of barbed wire fence surrounding the entire perimeter. You park your car, you leave all your electronics, cell phones, laptops behind. You are essentially cut off from the outside world. You walk in, you process, give your ID, you go through a metal detector and a series of closing doors, security doors. And you know you're officially in the prison when that last security door slams shut behind you with an emphatic clanging sound. On the first day, myself and my campus students, outside students, we walk through the halls of the prison and we go into our classroom where we're going to be for the remainder of the semester. And when we walk into the classroom, I purposely do not tell my campus students where to sit. And quite naturally on their own, they congregate to one area of the classroom. And then the moment comes when our incarcerated inside students come into the classroom for the first time to join us. And again, I don't tell them where to sit. And quite naturally, they sit in the complete opposite direction, away from the outside colleagues. And once they do that, I walk in between everybody and I politely ask everybody to situate themselves in a circle. Inside student sitting next to an outside student in a circle as a community. And once everybody does that, the very first way I start off the class is I open the elephant in the room and say, well, this is awkward, to which everybody chuckles. But from that point on, the dynamics of our classroom change. Because one of the first things I do before every class is we start off with a series of activities called icebreakers, which really just gets us comfortable with one another before we transition into the material for that class period. And it's interesting because in these icebreaker activities, both inside and outside students find out they share a lot of things in common in when they first start. Many of them find out that they share the same taste in music, movies, sports teams. Some students even find out inside and out that they come from the same communities. But what's most important is that it sets the foundation for our class as we start talking about the class materials. And at the end of the semester, on the last day, when it's time to say goodbye, we take a class picture together, not as a class, but as a community. But it leads me to this bigger question. Why are these type of classes unique? Why do we isolate ourselves from people who are incarcerated when it comes to education? Better yet, why do we also isolate ourselves from people within our own communities? Why do we allow social, racial, political, religious, economic disparities and differences to divide us? Could you imagine a community that is truly united and what that might look like? Let's take my corrections course for an example. Could you imagine a class that combines incarcerated individuals with law enforcement officers in a prison, in a class, together, learning about public safety and how they can make our community safer? Picture a class that combines incarcerated students with prosecutors and judges in class, learning about the criminal justice system together. And for those of you who are not familiar with the criminal justice system, prosecutors and judges have the power to sentence you to prison for the rest of your life. What if the class combined incarcerated individuals and people who have been victimized by crimes? What might those interactions look like? And what are the long-term implications of putting these groups of people together in community together and what that might look like? Well, I can tell you something that happened in my class, something unexpected, and it changed the dynamics of our classroom forever. In this particular class, in the middle of the semester, we were talking about a very traumatic topic, and we were going to a lot of things having to deal with trauma. And in the middle of the class, one of my outside students shared with us something very traumatic that happened to her as a teenage girl. We all sat intently and listened to her story. And when she was done, one of my students asked her, if you could face that individual that committed that crime against you, would you? And what would you say? And she thought about it for a moment. And she said, I would face him. And the only question I would really have is, does he regret what he did? Does he even think about what he did to me? Because there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it and it doesn't affect me. We, of course, could not answer this question for her. And out of nowhere, one of my inside students who's currently incarcerated slowly raises his hand, he stands up, and he says, well, I think I can answer some of that. He said, that individual that committed that crime against you, I can tell you he feels shame. He feels shame for what he did. And there's not a day that goes by that he doesn't think about it. And the reason why I can speak to that is that I'm incarcerated for perpetrating the same crime against somebody else. Keep in mind, in these classes, we're not there to ask our inside colleagues their crimes, why they are there. And yet, here we are in the middle of the semester, and we're talking about trauma in a prison of all places. And now we find out that both one of our inside and outside students is in some way connected as a victim and a perpetrator of a similar crime, different circumstances. Well, again, this is an awkward moment. What do you do? What do you say? How do people respond? Well, what happened is something I'll never forget. As a community, as a class, we came together in appreciation and the support of both the inside and outside students for sharing their story. See, our classroom, although it was in a prison, had become humanized. We treated people like we are human beings. And for them to feel comfortable, and of all places, a prison, to share those stories, it was a powerful moment. But it didn't stop there. In the reflection assignments that I assigned students, that sort of like a journal that allows them to kind of reflect on the activities for that day, every single student talked about that day and how empowering it was. And I began to read personal stories of trauma that students started pouring out to me in their reflections. And in the conversations, the group literature circles where people are working with together, they also started sharing their own personal stories. Many people began sharing. It became a classroom of equality, of community, of empowerment, of social change. And so when I ask you the question of what you envision when you think about social change, is this what comes to your mind? Imagine a world where we actually come together despite our differences, whether it's in a prison or whether it's in our community or in a classroom, to truly unify and make our world a better place. Now, would this be hard? Are these type of situations hard? Absolutely. But social change will always be hard. But what if each of us individually took that step into those unfamiliar and uncomfortable spaces? How might it impact our institutions of higher learning? How might it impact our systems of government? How might it impact our communities? I want to challenge each and every single one of you to take that next step. And for each of us, make no mistake, that's going to look very different. For some of you, it might be talking to that next door neighbor, that friend, that colleague, that relative, that professional with whom you completely disagree with on a given policy. Somebody from a different religion, different racial background, different socioeconomic status, and seeking to learn and understand from that individual. It might be getting in your vehicle and driving to that underserved community, and you are serving in a nonprofit that serves that community, but you are serving alongside and with somebody from that community. You're eating with them, you're conversing with them, you're laughing with them, you're sharing with them. It might be going into a prison and sitting and learning with somebody who is incarcerated. Whatever that step looks like for you, I challenge, I empower each of you to take that step. For I have learned that social change takes place when we can stand and unite together in unfamiliar spaces. Thank you.